Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings 2022 Travelers Championship. Picks, research, first look, and of course the Listeners League, now available. Only 2,500 spots this week in the Listeners League. The link is now available. It's open to the public down in the description of this video and podcast. Go join it as quickly as possible, and hopefully you have some extra funds from the US Open in order to go enter it, whether it be on DraftKings, whether it be through betting or props, whatever you played. Hopefully it turned out to be a profitable weekend. And I know there's going to be some really nice 5 of 6s that are going to end up cashing because the 6 of 6 rate was like 2% out there. That +4 cut did not do many favors to a lot of us out there. I played 80 lineups, and I went from 56 6 of 6 lineups, if the cut was +4, to 0 out of 80 with a +3 cut. Some really nice 5 of 6s, though. If only I had not played fake Johnny Manziel and just played all Nick Hardy in those spots, I'd probably be at the top right now. But hey, you live, you learn. You try to win, sometimes you don't, and you can reverse engineer a ton of stuff. And Father's Day weekend, hopefully it went well for everyone, not just the fathers, everyone watching, because who doesn't deserve to have a great weekend and hopefully a profitable one, at least a final great day of the US Open. Obviously, I am recording this before knowing the results. We got some runners, so hopefully we can galvanize together and get those. We got some nice placements, too. Hopefully one of the non-placement guys win. 2 of the placement guys that we have get their placements, and boom, very successful weekend. We'll see if we can keep that going at the Travelers Championship, and yeah, that would be absolutely fantastic. Smash the like to the video, by the way. Rate and review the podcast. And thank you, everyone who did all of everything that I could have possibly asked for this week during the US Open. Congrats to the winners who got their cash and their Herbert rookie card. But the ratings, the reviews, the retweets, it led to a very successful US Open week. And that would not be possible without the viewers and listeners like yourselves who help support, help spread the word of mouth of this show, and that's how we get our viewers. That's how we attract new people in here. So thank you very much for all of that. FantasyNational.com/Mayo will get you 20% off, and you can go do that right now. Any membership, the weekly, the monthly, the annual membership, 20% off if you use FantasyNational.com/Mayo, and Fantasy National is what I will be using for my walkthrough this week. And the field is pretty spicy in Connecticut. Now, some will say, and I've even theorized this myself, with the Live Tour making all these big signings, apparently there's going to be a few big announcements this week as well, that it sounds like the PGA Tour Commissioner, Jay Monahan, was like, yo, hey, all best players still on the PGA Tour, need you to show up outside of Hartford this week and go play in the Travelers Championship. That's a good conspiracy theory with the strength of this field. However, you might look at it a different way and say, you have a few tournaments between now and the Open Championship in about 4 weeks' time. So you have this event, you have the John Deere Classic, but now the Scottish Open is a part of the PGA Tour schedule. That happens the week before the Open Championship. Obviously, the Open is at St. Andrews in Scotland this year, so you can go over, play the Scottish Open with no punitive damage whatsoever in terms of status. You don't have to go apply to play on the DP World Tour. This is a PGA Tour event in co-sanction with the DP World Tour over at the Renaissance Club in Scotland. So I think guys are going to get over, play some links golf, get acclimated to the time changes, all those who are qualified for the Open Championship. No one really wants to go play the John Deere next week, and the John Deere is going head-to-head with the Portland Live event at the Pumpkin Patch, or whatever the hell it's called. So I would expect a very weak field for the John Deere Classic. Unfortunate, because I like the John Deere Classic, but this has become the event to skip. And there's no shorter flight on the PGA Tour from Boston to overseas, so you might as well stick around, and there's no US Open that's ever going to be closer to the Travelers Championship than the one at Brookline, so it just makes a lot of sense that a lot of the top names are playing. So when we head over to the field on PGA National, or on Fantasy National, .com, we see it's absolutely loaded. You got the defending champion, Harris English, who might actually be worth a look, considering he was top 5 in approach Saturday at the Open Championship and still shot like +9. He lost over 4 strokes on the green. So Harris English, coming off the injury, is looking a little bit better at the moment. But you got Rory, JT, Scheffler, Burns, Spieth, Brooks, Cantlay, Neiman, Im, Zalatoris, Mito, Xander, Tony Finau, Tommy Fleetwood, Webb Simpson. It's a very good top end of the field for the Travelers Championship. Then into Aaron Wise, Brian Harmon, Seamus Power, Harold Varner, Luke List, Kim, Mark Leishman, Davis Riley, Hollywood, Tom Hoagie, Russell Henley, Keith Mitchell, who's been on a tear as of late but did not qualify for the U.S. Open, will be at the Open Championship based on his result at the Canadian Open, played his way into the field along with Wyndham Clark. Who else do we got here? Jason Day, Kokrak. I thought Kokrak was leaving for LIV, but apparently that's not going to be the case. We'll see. Damon Kisner, Adam Long, Brennan Steele, they're all in the field this week at TPC River Highlands. It's the final Pete Dye course of the year as well. The one that really sticks out to me, we look him up right here, and old Rick Fowler, who I thought was suspended for joining LIV. I guess that's not official yet. I don't know what he's doing in this field or why he's allowed to play. Maybe he has held off on signing a deal with the LIV Tour so he could play in the Travelers Championship, maybe try to win, secure his PGA Tour card, then renounce membership before actually ever joining. I thought that was really surprising, to tell you the truth. Oh, Higo's playing. I feel like Higo was decent in Canada. I only need a modicum of any sort of form in order to get back on Higo. Oh yeah, there we go. I was 18th at Memorial. Have a time after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 consecutive missed cuts. Look at that week, the approach, the putting, and once we dig into the stats, not that it's remarkably different than most weeks, but putting and approach are where you want to be this week. Around the green, probably not going to be that big of a deal it's not necessarily a birdie fest at the Travelers Championship, but as we'll see, it's pretty much that way. Check out the course for the week, TPC River Highlands, the second shortest course on the PGA Tour, 6,852 yards. This is the official setup from the GCSAA this year. You have the bent grass and POA greens, mainly bent. That was a switch, I believe, in 2016. There's a new professional tee at number 7 since last year, so that's fun. Spring has been cold, and the rough has just started to wake up. We're never really too concerned about what the rough looks like at TPC River Highlands. You got 4 holes where number of holes with water in play are 569. Nice! Bunkers all around. Pretty small greens, only 5,000. And where this is back in New England after the the U.S. Open, I don't expect that the U.S. Open is going to be anything close to what's going to happen at the Travelers, but the types of greens, the greens aren't exactly the same, but they're pretty close to what it won't be running the same speed, obviously, but it's going to be very similar grass type to what we saw at Brookline. And we take a look at some of these holes, the hole by hole. People seem to enjoy this last week at the U.S. Open when we did the flyovers, and you just kind of get a sense of what's going on at this course. I mean, the pictures are always going to make it look a lot nicer. These are PGA Tour courses, too. Of course, they're going to be nice. Where is it? Is it number 15? And if we go back to Fantasy National, click the course breakdown, and we will see, where's that drivable par 4? That's always the fun one. Number 15, 296 yards. Over 90% of the field goes for that hole, which is a lot. Almost anyone in the entire field can reach it. And you do have to deal with the water that's going to be in play if you miss a little bit left, although you can still get it up and down from that, and you're going to see some eagles made on this hole. This is a really nice swing hole at this event. I really like this event in terms of scoring. It's really funny to see the different types of winners that have done well here over the years, because it's a lot of guys that play well at Riviera and the Valspar Championship, which would lead you to believe that although it's a really short course, that being able to move the ball both ways off the tee is pretty imperative. Although you can see, in terms of the top 10 finishers, putting, listen, you're going to have to make your 15-footers. That's how you're going to win this tournament, obviously. But, I thought it would be far more swung towards approach versus off the tee. So you can see with the top 5 finishers here, approach and off the tee are pretty similar. So strokes gained, ball striking is going to need to go up there a lot, because when we take a look at the past champions, you're going to see huge differences. I remember the year after COVID, like the COVID restart, this was the 3rd tournament out of the gate, and Dustin ended up winning. He's not in the field this week, obviously. But Shez, let's see, where's the Todd father? It was Todd and Dustin Johnson. Poor Brendan Todd suffered the Ender curse, saying he couldn't lose with his 2-shot lead against Dustin Johnson. Came T11, because of course that's going to happen. But when you have Brendan Todd and Dustin Johnson in the same final group, that should tell you a little bit about how this course is going to play. Like Shez Reavie won the year before that. Bubba Watson won the year before that. It looks like he might be leaving for the Live as well. So he is not in the field. But he's won here 3 times. The past 5 champions, you got Harris English, Dustin Johnson, Shez Reavie, Bubba Watson, Jordan Spieth. Then you had Russell Knox at -16 before that. All completely different styles of players. Some are bombers, some are the shortest hitters on the PGA Tour when we talk about Shez Reavie and Russell Knox. Both good ball striking wise, though, because their approaches were firing that week. So it's a lot to really look at here. We can take a look at who the best players in the field have been over the past few years. You see, so I mean, Harman, Streelman, Cantlay, Shez Reavie, and Day. Now, they've played it almost every year. Not Cantlay. He's never finished worse than 15th, but no better than 11th, which is kind of crazy. Rory's only played it 3 times, never finished worse than T17, but you just see a lot of like random dudes who pop up here. Kevin Tway, Keegan Bradley, who I assume is going to be a very popular selection, being the not hometown guy, but New England guy. We'll see how he finishes at the U.S. Open. Hopefully he comes in second if one of the other guys wins. If not, come in first, Keegan Bradley. That would be absolutely terrific news for Pat Mayo and a lot of viewers of the show. Paul Shag at the same time, helping out those DraftKings lineups, too. You can get a big 5 of 6 on the go if that's going to be the case. You have Brooks, who was 3 for 3 in cuts made here and looked like he was playing a little bit better until he wasn't over the weekend. Mac Hughes, 5 for 5 in terms of cuts made in everything that has been played out over the past 5 years. Now, let's see if we can find a showdown edge here. Hole number 10 is the second most difficult on the course. You're not going to get a good wraparound with the 3 final holes being 3 of the hardest holes on the course. So it doesn't really matter where you start in terms of showdown, whether it's the front or the back. Things look about even. One of the funny things about this, you'd think that around the green would play a huge part with these greens only being 5,000 square feet. Some of the smallest, like I mentioned, but they don't. They're like, let's see, 0.3, so they're almost half of what off the tee is, half of what around the green is, so it's the least important component. You obviously don't want to be bad around the greens, and par 5s really do weight a ton here, because when you take a look at it, it's par 70, but you got these 2 par 5s. You can eagle number 13 pretty convincingly, over a 34% birdie rate on both of them. If you're not taking advantage of those par 5s, you're absolutely cooked. It's going to happen. What are the easiest holes on the course? Yeah, you have the 2 par 5s and the drivable par 4. Then you get like into this like different range, like number 2, not necessarily drivable, but you can get it as close as you want. Some will opt for the layup, others will not. But it's really interesting to kind of go back and reverse engineer how a lot has been played. The bigger thing is, what are the length of these holes? They are short, 400 to 450 yards. There are 8 of them on the scorecard, with 2 of them less than 400 yards. So you only have the 2 that are over 450 in terms of par 4s. But this, again, will bring a lot of players into the field. When we load up the model and try to figure out who we like here, it's going to be guys that play the shorter par 4s really well. I remember the year that we hit Bubba Watson with the victory when he had to come back against Paul Casey, when Paul Casey got stuck behind that tree in the final round. JB Holmes was one that really rated out well in terms of short par 4 scoring. And maybe you want to look back throughout time, maybe it's short form. These stats aren't necessarily sticky, but I think that's a route that you want to play this week. And unlike almost every other course on the PGA Tour, the plurality of approach shots this week are going to come from inside of 175. Now on the par 5s, you're going to have your 200 plus. That still only accounts for 21.8% of approach shots. This is very low, especially considering there's only 10% from 75 to 200. So basically, who can stick their wedges to 15 feet? Who can make those putts? There's your winner for the week. Easy stuff. Let's try to figure out who that is going to be. So let's take a load up of the model and how it's been doing throughout the course of the years. Hopefully it's pretty good. Reminder again to smash the like and play in the Pat Mayo Experience Listeners League. So we got strokes gained ball striking at 25%. Approach, we're going to separate them just to take a look at them and overweight those. Approach, just marginally more, 15% off the tee, 10%. Par 4 scoring overall, 5%, 400 to 450 yards, 10%, par 5s, 10%. As we did see, that still plays a huge determining factor. So that's going to lend you to your bombers more likely than not if they can get there in two. Birdies are better gained and opportunities gained. I'm putting them together, 5% apiece. Around the green, 5%. And then putting from 5 to 10 feet and 10 to 15 feet, both weighted at 5%. I've added those new for this year. Didn't even try to do it in real time. Went in before the show, got it done, so we don't have to talk about it too much. Travelers for the years has been very good at the top. That is my note after last year's. So at the bottom may not be the best, but we'll find out what we got going on in terms of loading in the model results. And hopefully we can find something good, something sneaky that's going to end up popping up for us. We can take a look at Pete Dye course design too. If you're wondering and want to search through the Pete Dye courses, the easiest way to do it on Fantasy National is click on the Pete Dye filter, obviously, but Sawgrass, Harbortown, TPC River Highlands for the Travelers Championship, TPC Louisiana for the Zurich Austin Country Club for the match play, stadium course at La Quinta, where they play 2 of the 4 rounds at the Career Builder, Crooked Stick for the BMW Championship in 2012 and 2016, Whistling Straits, Kiowa Island, where they played PGA Championships over the course of the past 10 years or so. You've had Whistling Straits 2015, 2005, 2010. The Ryder Cup was obviously there last year as well. Kiowa was last year's PGA Tour Championship host site. So we've spaced it out over the past 50 rounds. Justin Thomas should not be a huge surprise, comes in at number 1. I have no idea. Actually, I can probably just look it up this way, of how Justin Thomas has played at the Travelers over the years, because this really feels like a Justin Thomas type course. Like, let's get it close, let's hit some wedges, not super punitive off the fairway. Like, you can get yourself into some trouble, but nothing crazy. Not so much like the Canadian Open a few weeks ago. But yeah, he's never really played all that well here. 2016, a 3rd place. Maybe there's something about this that doesn't fit his eye. Obviously, you can't drain a putt at all at this course in any of the past 3 years. Was that an average of, he lost 5.4 strokes in 2020. That was just coming out of COVID. This is only in 2 rounds. -8, -3. So watch out for Justin Thomas on the greens this week. That's not looking all that promising. Either way, we can try to continue to parse through the numbers, although he does rate out number 1. So with the 50 sample size, who is surprising on this list? So like Justin, Scotty, and Sam Burns, top 3, no shocker. Rory, 5, Cantlay, 6, Spieth, Zalatoris, Keegan Bradley, Sungjae, Xander Schauffele. No huge surprises there. Mito being number 4, he continues to absolutely dominate in terms of the stats that we like to look at. Did not come to fruition at all at the PGA or at the U.S. Open. I'm getting all my majors mixed up now. You got the Open Championship, the U.S. Open, the PGA Championship, but he did miss the cut on the number. It's not like he had a disastrous week at Brookline, so I wouldn't be too scared to go back to Mito, and you'll probably get some pretty decent odds on him, to tell you the God's honest truth, after a miscut and with the quality of this field. No real surprises anywhere. It's just the guys who have been playing well. Long-term, Hoagie and Vegas and Spawn and Alonto still stick out like a sore thumb in terms of where they go. Webb Simpson was having a better week. Went on a bogey streak towards the end of his round. Bogey on the 34th and 35th hole caused him to miss the cut. But it was nice to see him do a little bit better. There has been not a prevailing notion at this course over the years, but Harris English, kind of got his way into the mix at the U.S. Open a year ago at Torrey Pines, ended up coming in 3rd, and boom, he ends up spiking the next week. 2 years ago at Pebble Beach, Chez Reavie did the same thing, had a top 5 finish at the U.S. Open on the West Coast, and boom, he spikes at the Travelers Championship the next week. So when Jeff and I go over the show, go over the U.S. Open, the final stats, do the recap, that's going to play a part of my process. Maybe sort of the sneaky guy who had a great week with approach, snuck into the top 10, top 5. Maybe that can translate over. I mean, right now that's pointing to Keegan Bradley if he doesn't get the job done. But he's always beat down at this course anyway in terms of what his odds are going to be. But if he comes in with good form, local guy, that narrative always prevails in terms of the betting market. That'll make people want to get on him. And if he's coming off a good week, you can expect Keegan to be like 25-1 at this tournament or something crazy like that. Even if he doesn't win, he comes 4th. If he absolutely blows up, maybe we end up with a better number. Brian Harmon could be that guy as well, someone who's played this course immaculately over the years. Take a look at him just for a second to see how he comes in, having a pretty decent week at the U.S. Open as well. You can see his Travelers history: 5th miscut, 8th, 6th in his past 4 starts, has a 3rd thrown back in there, only 2 miscuts and 10 starts. Did not do particularly well with the irons the past 2 years. And when you see him coming into play this week, he has 3 pretty good performances. It's funny that the T18 at Memorial, just in terms of overall ball striking, was way down versus the PGA Championship, but albeit that was at a harder course, especially for him. But it's nice to see those approach numbers in the positive for him coming into this event. We know that he's going to gain strokes around the green. The driving is going to be pretty good. So overall ball striking, Brian Harman, I'm not spoiling anything for you guys. You know that Brian Harman's likely a good play at this event. Seamus Powers, one I would keep my eye on too, as he almost fits that sort of category of someone who's just kind of sneak up. There's Munoz playing, because Munoz would very much be the same way, and Minwoo Lee. 3 guys. Now, Munoz isn't here. Is Minwoo here? Because he might end up with a top 10 this week at the U.S. Open. No, he's not playing as well. So that's 2. He eagled number 8, his second to last hole on Friday, in order to make the cut at the U.S. Open. And he played pretty well on Saturday, too. I don't know how it's going to turn out for him on Sunday, but I did find that not surprising, but it was interesting to see that he keeps showing up some of these big-time courses. Obviously, he won the Scottish Open a year ago, but Power is someone I would have my eye on, and Brendan Steele is another 2. Just to kind of go glance at, as he's been playing some good golf as of late. You can see 6 consecutive cuts made, back-to-back top 10s, ball striking off the charts. No idea what his history is like here. All right, it's not bad. It's either good or bad. He lost almost 6 strokes putting last year while still gaining 6 strokes tee to green, which is absolutely insane. You rarely see that in 2 rounds of action. 6th at the Travelers the year before that, 21st. It's unfortunate that he didn't get to play in the U.S. Open to keep in that lead-in form, but still, like you can see, his lead-in form is quite good. A 10th at the Memorial, 9th at the PGA Championship. Now he comes to the Travelers, a place where he's experienced some success in the past. So Brendan Steele, shortlist Brendan Steele. Once again, I don't think this is going to be a super crazy sneaky play, but you can only play so many players. And when you're constructing either DraftKings lineup or building your betting card for the week, with the amount of quality at the top of this field, you might be able to catch some of these guys depending on what book you're going to use. I recommend DraftKings Sportsbook, by the way, that you're going to find like some 60s, some 80s, and that's not going to feel good in a field of 156 players, a full field event on the PGA Tour, but that's not awful at the same time either for some of these guys that are trending upwards at a course where we've seen basically a mix and a match of top-end talent win, or someone from that, like, even when Reevey won and Harris English won, like you're looking at like 40-1, 60-1. Russell Knox, I remember that one very vividly. He was 40-1 that week, but the field was far less strong. Even last year, it was still pretty strong. Harris English ended up being Kramer Hickok in the finals. So we can continue to look at that stuff going forward, but let's go to the 400 to 450 yard par 4s. Mito, Sungjae, Keegan, Adam Long. I like Adam Long this week. He is someone that has just not necessarily trending upwards, but he's just been playing far more consistent golf after a really bad run. He has made, let's see here, 5 of his past 7 cuts, and every time he makes the cut, no finish worse than T35. He's going to be very accurate off the tee. Hopefully he can catch fire with his irons. We'll see how he's played the Travelers. Miscut 24th and 21st. And horrible tee to green last year, but that was, I believe, during the midst of him just not being very good. Yeah, so he had 2 nice tournaments. You had the huge miscut streak to start the year after the Players' Championship. Schwab and Memorial, pretty good. Then miscut, 23rd. It's funny with Adam Long. He either misses the cut horrendous. It's horrendous when he misses the cut. I'm not going to try to say words that I can't pronounce this morning on a Sunday as I get myself geared up to watch this golf all day. But every time he makes the cut, he actually finishes really well. He's one of those sneaky in-between guys that maybe he's not the greatest DraftKings play because he misses a lot of cuts. But, I mean, as a top 40 bet, what you can normally get Adam Long at, I mean, he finishes in the top 40 like 85% of the time he makes the cut. So he rarely lets you down. Maybe a good Saturday or Sunday showdown play or a weekend golf play on DraftKings, only because he seems to have the heart in him when he gets you to the weekend. But I don't mind Adam Long this week. It's nice to see that he pops up in that key range that we're looking for. So I don't want to go over all like the top end guys who are good. Yeah, Spieth is good. Brooks is good. Big shocker on that one. And we're still looking over the past 50 rounds right now. Kisner is still pretty good. He almost got himself to the cut line. Alonso is pretty good. Nick Watney has to be the weirdest statistical profile of any player that we cover I wouldn't say the majority of the time, but he plays like every single week. He's not good most of the time because he's so horrendous off the tee, but the approach numbers are like pretty good. Like 3.2 strokes gained on approach in 2 rounds, 1.3 in 2 rounds, 2.4 in 2 rounds. He made the cut at the Players, and he actually had a nice run through Florida, but man, you think like figure something out off the tee, and it's not like it's been getting progressively worse. Like at least over the past 20 events, and most of this is weighted to the past 5, where he's losing almost 5 strokes per event off the tee. That 1.4, lose 1.4, that's fine if you're going to be hitting your irons this well. But it's hard to back him, even at a sleeper price, if he just can't figure out what to do with the driver. He's just putting himself he needs to have those massive approach numbers just to have a chance to make the cut. It's never a position you want to be in. It's a lot like Luke Donald in that situation, too. You got Svensson. Svensson was pretty good in Canada, as I believe. Where's Corey Connors this week? Connors would have been good at this course. T. Dunks. Oh, Bezadenhout is back. Always fun to lose your money betting on Christian Bezadenhout. It's a pastime of the Pat Mayo experience and a lot of the listeners of the Pat Mayo experience. Svensson horrible on POA, as we saw there, but yeah, pretty good week. 4 cuts in a row. He's going to be way back down in the pack, and these shorter courses have played better to him, at least in terms of making the cut. Wells Fargo didn't go so well, but he's gaining off the tee, gaining on approach. Maybe he can make some putts. He's now gained in 4 consecutive, so that's always nice to see. You have the big downswing in terms of POA, but on bent, I mean, this does have POA trivials mixed into it. Maybe, I don't know what the dormant seed of grass is right now in the greens, but they're calling it bent grass with POA, so I'm going to go with bent grass probably. And they're a bit faster than they used to be when they were pure POA, but they're not like the fastest. They're not going to be as fast as they were at Brookline this week. I'll tell you that much. Maybe we can shrink down the sample size a little bit and take a look at the past 24 rounds and see if that tells us a little bit of a different story when it comes to identifying some players at the back end of this field for our DraftKings lineup, for top 40 plays, anything like that. Because it doesn't feel like it feels like a stud is going to win. We'll see who ends up winning at the US Open, but it's likely going to be someone from the unless Keegan wins, it does look like it's going to be someone from the sub 35 to 1 range, even if it's Fitz or Zalatoris. I mean, they're 30, 35 to 1 coming into the week. So that's what we're looking for in that sense. But here, I mean, you might get some of those guys, like what's Spieth going to be this week? We'll get to that when we get to that. Actually, better question, what's Mito going to be this week? Because he still rates out 3rd in these numbers. I got to feel like at worst, he's going to be 40 to 1. You might be able to catch an opening 50, 55, I think at least, with the name value that's in this field. So once we shrink the sample size down to 24 rounds, we start seeing a little bit of a different story here. Yeah, very similar names, but Brendan Steele works his way in to the top 10. He is number 10 now, and Mito remains number 3. Finau and Spieth are 1 and 2, if you were wondering in that regard. Spawn continues to be up there. It doesn't feel like Spawn is playing well at all, but I got to see where this is all coming from. Yeah, back-to-back missed cuts. 3 missed cuts in his past 4 starts. He had the nice run, Valspar, Valero, and Masters, and that's still propping up a lot of what he's doing. At least before the Canadian Open at the PGA Championship and Byron Nelson, he had gained over 3 strokes on approach. That is positive information to look at. I was going to look at Seabez as well. Oh, Bez played well at the Charles Schwab. I haven't seen him in a while, but 2 top 15s in his past 3 starts. Missed the cut at the PGA Championship, but okay. That's usually enough for anyone to talk themselves into Seabez for the week, especially at a tournament where distance is less of an issue. I mean, distance always helps, obviously, but he's someone who finds a ton of fairways, and that can go a long way. Tiddly Dunks, Tyler Duncan. You know, the approach has been good in 3 straight. Did miss the cut at the Canadian Open because of a poor chipping performance. But usually, again, someone's going to hit their irons pretty well. He's going to hit a ton of fairways off the tee, and you hope to get a good putting week. What is his history like here? Made the cut in each of his all 4 starts. No good finishes. Nothing better than T32. Has yet to figure out these greens, except for in 2019 when he was fantastic. It's been at least a stroke and a half lost on the greens in the other starts previous to that. All right, let's go down here. Tommy Boy. Oh, Lahiri. Lahiri ranks out 16th. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere with this. There's a name that we hadn't seen before. So Steele and Lahiri are big movers in this field. Aaron Wise is another one who could really pop up in terms of contending at the Travelers this week, a week after having a very good U.S. Open performance. We'll see how he ends up doing this week. But I have a feeling that his odds are going to be like Aaron Wise seems overvalued every week. He's a lot like Cameron Tringali in that sense, where it's like, oh yeah, Aaron Wise should be 60-1. It's like, oh, he's 28-1. What is going on here? Why is he the same? Why is he the same odds as Patrick Cantlay or something crazy like that? Lonto continues to move up the list. It's been a poor go for Lonto. Scott Piercy rates out 23rd by the numbers. Glover is 24th. Wouldn't hate Glover here. Patrick Rogers is another one who kind of fits the criteria of what I was talking about. Alex Smalley did not play in the U.S. Open, but was there for a while at the Canadian Open before kind of giving it away on Sunday. But the ball striking has been really good. The putter leaves a lot to be desired. But we've seen a few at weaker event fields, obviously, like Mexico and Corrales. 2 top 6 finishes there. Charles Schwab, good field. T27, RBC Canadian Open, 21st. So not horrible from Alex Smalley's perspective. So maybe he's someone that we can get back on the go. Rogers should end up with a decent result at the PGA Championship. That would make it a T18, whatever his result is here. The around the green has been really bad, which frankly shocks me. I always thought of Patrick Rogers as a good around the green player. And for ages, even going to last year, it's mainly positive. When he loses a ton, but when he gains like 1.5, 2 strokes. But this run that he's been on recently has been horrendous, losing at least 1.3 strokes around the green. Fortunately, this is a course where if that comes into play, you don't want to be losing 2.4 strokes around the green. But if the putter can stay hot and the ball striking, especially those approaches, continue to be good, that's something we can take a look at with Patrick Rogers. And he does have a 3rd place finish here over the years. He lost 7 strokes putting last year. That's not great. Gained on approach in 3 straight at the Travelers Championship. It's not horrible performances from him. It's been a rough go, a consistently mediocre go for Lucas Glover is probably the best way to put it. A lot of made cuts, but a lot of T40, T48, T30, T60. His lack of chipping and that one bad round really does seem to submarine him. T20 here last year, 7.3 strokes gained on approach, but never really a great run for him over the years. Piercy was T21 at the Canadian Open, and again, a lot of it, the driving has been great for QAnon Piercy here, and 1.8, 1.6 in his past 2 on approach. Let's see how he has done. Miscut in 85th in his 2 appearances, but Piercy's going to be like 6,400. 6,600 on DraftKings. We can start taking a little bit of a look at some of these guys. T6 for Lonto at the Wells Fargo. So he's trending back down after a T15, T6 spike, and then it kind of gets flipped back around. He's made 3 cuts, missed the cut at the U.S. Open, but, a lot of people miss cut at the U.S. Open, especially people that we either bet on or rostered in DraftKings. Good times. But that's where we're looking at with Lonto. He is the number 1 player in the field, however, in that key par 4 range over the past 24 rounds. It is Lonto, Scotty, Mito, List, and Tony Finau, your top 5. Finau rates out really well here. It may be a nice week to back Finau. Never that it's a great week to back Finau in the outright betting market, but he was obviously such a popular play this week, scummed everyone down the stretch, blew up a lot of lineups. There's going to be a lot of antipathy towards Tony Finau. I'd say Sung Jae as well. I have no qualms about going back to Sung Jae at this course, but his lead in form, still pretty great. Didn't play well at the U.S. Open. Like I said, guys don't play well at the U.S. Open sometimes, and it's not like he blew up and he didn't shoot plus 20. Should have been better, wasn't better. But here we are. Wyndham Clark is also very good on some of these shorter par 4s. Henley, Keegan Bradley, Joaquin Niemann, Spieth. There's Smalley again. CT Pan. Pan was someone I really liked at the Canadian Open. In fact, I had bet him at the Canadian Open, and then he had to WD. But some pretty nice lead-in form here. No real spike finishes for him, but he's made every cut since the Valspar. It's a span of 7 consecutive events. We'll see how he's played. Not great at the Travelers. Did spike a T8 in 2017, but back-to-back missed cuts for him at this course. But one of the better Pete Dye players. Obviously, he's won the Heritage, played well at the Wyndham Championship. Courses that generally not necessarily go hand in hand. This one does seem to be a bit of an outlier on the Pete Dye front, but just look at his approach game for CT Pan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 consecutive events gaining on approach. And he had gained in 4 in a row before losing a bunch at Charles Schwab and Memorial off the tee. So if you can just reel that back into like where he was at Heritage or even Valero and gain 1, 2 strokes off the tee, keep up the great approach play, get yourself a putting week, CT Pan. All of a sudden we got a stew going with old CT. Maybe I'd rather have CT from the Challenge. It would have the New England connections. Maybe not CT Pan. That's not a horrendous spot to be in either. Todd Father, obviously, he lost to DJ and ended up come T11. We've looked at that already, but he's just been playing some pretty consistently good golf. Obviously got the putter rolling. We know he goes through these stretches, though. He hasn't had 3 bangers in a row since, what are the last 3 bangers in a row? I guess it would be this stretch, 4.5, 2.3, and 4.4 for him on the green. But his last 2 events, 5.3, 5.7. And then at Valero and Heritage, 4.4, 5.5. I guess the problem is that you see him spiking these huge performances, 5.7, 5.3. And most of the time, like outside of Charles Schwab, he didn't have a legit chance to win any of these. So what happens when he doesn't gain 5 on the greens? Then you're looking at a miscut at Byron Nelson when he only gained 1.5 over 2 rounds. He lost strokes at the Mexico Open, came T64. Like, he needs to gain this much on the green just to compete. 4.9 strokes gained at the Sony Open, T48. 4.9 in Phoenix, T26. 5.1 at the Honda Classic, T48. Like, that is not cutting it. We want our guys, that's why we like to target the crappy putters who could potentially spike a week like this, because when they spike a week like this, they win the tournament. They don't come T13. They don't, I mean, T3 is great. I mean, that's a good finish. T13 we would take out of Brendan Todd this week, obviously. But what happens if he doesn't, if he's just neutral or he's just like slightly positive? Still gains, but it's not an extreme week. He gains 2 strokes putting. What does he come at the Canadian Open then? Like T37? It's not cutting it, Todd Father. Figure it out. This is a better course for him, like I mentioned, where his accuracy will come into play. I think he had hit every fairway through 3 rounds before Cuss got his like grubby mitts into him on the final day. Interesting to see, though. Like, Lahiri rates out better on these short holes. Lahiri T16, like I mentioned, in terms of the overall ratings over the past 24 rounds. Ben Coles is up here. I mean, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. I just found out that MJ Defoe's real name is MJ Duffy. That's what he gets for being in the mix this week. Now I know how to pronounce your name. Great stuff. Shank was actually looking pretty good going into the Canadian Open. Withdrew from that. I believe he made the cut at the U.S. Open. It was a place where he had played his amateur days going into it. Did Shank make it? Yeah, Shank entered the final round T25. That's not bad. I mean, for Adam Schenk, that's actually pretty good. So how are we looking here for Adam Schenk? Yeah, 7.4 at the Memorial, having another good week. I mean, again, we're just trying to assess some guys who might rate out pretty well for this course in particular and come from the back end of the field. Lee Biota, I can constantly in the back of my mind remember him driving number 15. He's just been very good on a lot of these short holes. Worse this year than he has been in previous years. Remember, he was going through his really hot putting streak? I think it was around this time last year, but interesting to see at the same time, where if he could end up popping back up. And this is like the triple digits betting market, $6,000 range. From the very top, like, if we take the short term, Finau, Spieth, Mito, Scheffler and Thomas, maybe that's what we should do now. Actually, let's go back. Let's turn off all of the filters and just look at Pete Dye courses, just to give a one-over to make sure that we're not overlooking anything coming into it. Past 24 rounds on Pete Dye courses, probably like Siwoo Kim and Patrick Cantlay. They always rate out pretty well. Cantlay and Siwoo Kim, 1 and 2 over the past 24 rounds. Harman, Sungjae, Harold Varner. Man, Varner's close. It really feels like he's close to a win. How has he played at this tournament over the years? Keegan, Zalatoris, JT are after Harold Varner in the strokes gained total rankings. Like, let's see. Travelers, maybe if you could spell Mayo, you'd be doing much better. 3 consecutive cuts made, 6.7, 7.2 on approach. The past 2 years of the Traveler made 3 consecutive cuts. And the putting comes and goes with him, but at least we're seeing positive performances from him. Is this the week for Big Harry V? He might have to trim the Big Harry V here if he ends up with a win before presumably taking off to the Live Tour. Bent, good idea for him if we're going to call this bent grass this week. It's his best putting surface out there. He loses the fewest amount of strokes on the greens on bent grass versus Bermuda and Poa annua. So good to see. So you see the 13th, 27th, 48th, 3rd, 6th, 23rd at the Masters. Dude is showing up. The irons are showing up. We know we can drive it. He probably needs to be someone who chases down the stretch if he's going to get his win, but I don't want to discredit Harold Varner. I haven't been playing him at all, but if we get reasonable numbers, and we might see some guys spike a little bit, like Keegan Bradley. If Denny McCarthy makes a run on the final day at the U.S. Open, he's going to spike up here as well. So, there's Cameron Davis. Cameron Davis does play these shorter Pete Dye courses pretty well. So Cameron Davis, let's throw him on the long shot list. We got Steele, Long, Cameron Davis, Lahiri, CT Pan. We're building a card of absolute jabronis. Always like to see that. Streelman has won this tournament in the past. He's also won at Valspar, a place where, Paul Casey has played well at both those. Obviously, he's like the king of the Valspar. Bubba Watson has won here 3 times, played well at Valspar. DJ had played really well at Valspar, won at this tournament. So that's not bad to see. Not great for Kevin Streelman lately. He got his big Memorial cut streak coming to an end, but a lot of it is chipping and putting. If we take a look at young gun Kevin Streelman, he's got some spike performances here. Can figure out these greens from time to time. A 5, a 6, and a 7.8 in terms of the green. Was very poor with his irons last year, which you really don't see. You have 2nd, an 8th, and a 1st, and a 15th. So, Streelman, young gun, let's have it. Let's go, Kevin Streelman. Let's get on it. So don't mind Streelman in this. We got Vegas, Neiman, Bezadenhout, Scheffler, Damon. Damon could be another one for a potential breakthrough spot here if he continues up his good play. Long Dong, Paul Barjon in 2 rounds. I believe that was at the Amex when he was in the final group. So you have to take some of these with a grain of salt because they don't have a ton of experience on Pete Dye courses. Gim Reaper popping up after a great ball striking week in Canada. A good week across the board for a T18, but he missed so many putts coming down the stretch on Sunday that really could have got him into it and just completely faded. So you have a shorter course at RBC Canadian, at least on the scorecard. Pretty good performance. Bad short course. Made the cut at the Heritage, a shorter course. Obviously a Pete Dye. Pete Dye Heritage makes the cut. Pete Dye, the Players, where he's been great over the course of his career. So different things to look at when we're going through all of this. Oh, is that Brian? That's back to Brian Harmon, who was 5th at Valspar. So let's see if we can take a look at any sort of Valspar crossover. So I would say Valspar, outside of Pete Dye stuff, Valspar, Genesis, Big 2, sneaky one, TPC Scottsdale, if you're going to look at it. Oh, Davis Riley was 2nd here. Maybe this is the week to go with Davis Riley. It's not like he's having a poor week either. Neesmith was off to that hot start, so there's plenty of options that we can go with here. There's Kevin Streelman inside the top 10 at the Valspar Championship. I didn't see if Hadwin was playing or not. If I was Hadwin, I'd be pressing my luck here, try to keep this heater going, but no, he's not showing up to the Travelers Championship. Other names that potentially pop up, Stumanji Sink, Streb is up there. Fleetwood was T16. He's in the field. Wawrinski, the Smother Man. There we go, Smother Man. JJ Spawn, Bryce Garnett, Troy Merritt. All right, we got guys that we can play around with here. All right, let's try to guess the odds for the Travelers Championship. This is going to be a difficult one this week. I really think so, in terms of trying to figure out where our guys are coming from. So the favorites will have to be, and some of this will be dictated by who wins the U.S. Open. If Keegan wins the U.S. Open, Keegan, I think, is the one that's all over the place. If he has a bad Sunday and shoots +8, let's say, he's going to go to presumably opens at 45, 50 to 1. If he wins the U.S. Open, he's going to be 25 to 1. If he has a good day but loses, he'll be 30 to 1. So his numbers are going to be off the board. Obviously, he's not going to be the favorite. But if Rory storms back to win, if JT storms back to win, or if Scheffler just outright wins, or Zalatoris wins, all 4 of whom are in the field this week, they're going to be the betting favorite. It'll be hilarious to see Will Zalatoris on a betting board with Justin Thomas, Rory McIlroy, and Scotty Scheffler, and he is the favorite. He probably wouldn't even be the favorite, but he'd be one of the upper echelon type players. Patrick Cantlay's in this field too, so we have Rory, JT, Scheffler, Will Z, Cantlay. We call the Spieth is here. He's won this tournament, and he's Jordan Spieth, so obviously his odds are going to be pretty shallow. Sam Burns, he's another one who could win the U.S. Open, and then boom, he could just spike all of a sudden here. I like Seamus Power at this event too. He's a part of that collection of guys that could really sneak in here and make some noise. Oh, Xander. Everyone likes to bet Xander. He can be there. Finau. People like to bet Finau. Oh, man. And then you got your Neiman, Brooks, Fleetwood, Webb, Harris English, Mito, Sungjae type range after these guys. Depending on how they want to price this out, we could get some good numbers on some pretty decent players in that 28 to 45 type range. But I'm going to say with the way that Rory is rolling right now, and again, this will come down to what happens at the U.S. Open to 1 or 2 points here to make someone the overall favorite. Even if you do line shop, you might find different favorites at different places. But I'll say Rory 8 to 1, JT 8 to 1, Scheffler 9 to 1, Zalatoris 14, Spieth 14, Burns 20, Xander 22, Cantlay 22, Finau 28. Those would be my guesses for the sub 30 type. And other guys might break through 30. Finau might be 35. Again, Keegan can work his way into this mix too if he ends up pulling out an upset victory. Aaron Wise is another one. So there's a bunch of names on the board that could breach through and end up inside the top 10 in terms of odds, sub 30 to 1. I have a feeling a few of these guys will get pushed down because if Will Z ends up winning and he goes to like 10 to 1 or something, then you have like an 8, 8, 9, and 10. Then Spieth gets bumped to like 16 or 18, depending on where you're at. Cantlay might move down. Burns, Xander, and Finau might move down because you can't have that much at the very top in terms of short odds and leave nothing for people to bet in the 20s. That's just not how sportsbooks do it. I mean, DraftKings Sportsbook might do that on opening odds. You just wait till Tuesday. The odds will be much better at that point. I will return on Monday with Jeff Feinberg breaking down the U.S. Open, giving our bets for the Travelers. And once again, happy Father's Day weekend to everyone out there. Smash the like on the way out, play in the Listeners League, sub to Mayo Media Network, and I will see you next time.
Mayo experience! Experience!